My name is Fran White. I'm an abstract artist living in Sussex, England. I have become much more abstracted in my artwork more recently. In fact, I think it was there all along in the background, but what I'm really interested in is proportion, shape, relation. Maybe being trained as a weaver helps with that, because we were certainly looked a lot at proportions and things. I trained to be a weaver and graduated in 1998 from the Surrey Institute of Art and Design. I then started a small business where I commissioned fabric to be industrially woven from my designs. But before that, I had a business where I hired out fabric backgrounds for still life photography in the advertising and editorial world. I did the business for 15 years. It had to be based in London because that's where the photographic stylists were who hired from us. And by then I'd married and started having children, and that was Sussex based. So in the end, it became a bit too complicated. But I did realise I had a kind of yearning. I didn't know what the yearning was. You know, having children was lovely, but there was something missing. So a couple of friends mentioned the Open College of the Arts, and I did a creative approach to textile design for over 2 years. So I then did something at the London Institute. The lady who taught us for 2 years, wonderful lady, Betty Myerscough, she helped me go to college. After college, it was really down to you to decide what to do. I had inquiries from fashion designers about fabric, so I started making my own fabric. Have my own fabric made. Local friends introduced me to the idea of Emily Ball at C. White's, so I started attending courses there. And actually a lot of people who went to those courses, they went to her even though they were doing full-time art degrees, because they found then at art college they weren't getting the teaching they'd expected. Emily Ball has been pivotal in my development as an artist. My mother's very creative with colours and interior decoration, and my father was immensely practical building things, and so I think I've inherited skills from the two of them. I didn't realise how inherent colour is for me. It's obviously very important. I learned watercolour painting from Jackie Binns, my basket making friend, who went into teaching watercolour, and she brought into that the great investigative processes. I work now with acrylic because that's a natural progression from watercolour, and you can use water with acrylic. I often like using any kind of a medium that reacts nicely to water. When I go into my studio to start painting, I might well look through an old sketchbook or actually some photographs that I printed off. I might not actually work from that photograph because I'll go into my studio and it makes me recognise something that's already there amongst the paperwork, amongst the old paintings, or it draws me to use a particular charcoal or a brush. For me, painting and making art and being creative is as necessary as breathing. It answers lots of needs, personal needs. It's very important to me. The While the Kettle Boils project started in lockdown 1. We were all taken a bit by surprise by life, and I used to get the Emily Ball at C. White's newsletter, and she'd asked various tutors for advice during these weird times. And one of them, Simon Carter, said, do a drawing in the time it takes your kettle to boil. Well, I took it literally, and I went to the kettle and I got an old sketchbook and I did the drawing of the kettle. I used pencil and I carried on daily. I did it across 2 pages. I was dragged along by it. So I thought, oh, well, I could colour them. So I drew them, still the kettle, stuff around the kettle. I saw how far away from the kettle I could get. I sometimes had to boil the kettle twice because I was just doing it in the time it took the kettle to boil. And I would photograph that, and then I would colour in the spaces or colour the whole picture. Once I get going, I'm blinkered, I think. I just get on with it. In fact, I actually had to be gently helped to stop. I joined the Pure Arts group a couple of years ago and have found that to be a huge support in my artistic development. Leslie Sams, who started the Pure Arts group, started these weekly meetings and we could all join in, and that was so helpful. With the While the Kettle Boils project, Leslie pointed out that I could let it come to its natural end. I could give myself a break. It was summertime. Lockdown had stopped, so my grandsons could come and visit us and stay, and just why not enjoy being with the family and notice what I noticed, which I did. And being a photographer anyway, I found myself absolutely amazed to suddenly start noticing shadows that I was surrounded by. Leslie invited us to consider doing a Back to Basics course. It's become absolutely invaluable. She gave us a series of exercises. I started back in the studio referencing these shadow photographs, and we were invited to do a drawing in 3 hours. So I did a charcoal drawing of the shadows from my studio door. We also were invited to do a very simple painting. So I did a painting from the beveled shadows photograph I'd taken. And then we had to we were invited to recreate that in a different genre. So it was Baroque, a Cubist, Surrealist, Frida Kahlo, George O'Keeffe, Egyptian, seascape. So they look very, very similar, these paintings, and very different. And I used them on old canvases that I had, which are the perfect size. So I think that might have been where my repurposing has started coming into my life, because I'm now doing a repurposing project. Really, what's next for me is working out when a piece of work is finished, what to keep and what not to keep. And with the repurposing project, I'm actually repurposing a lot of stuff I've very carefully filed away into folders, and enjoying realising that there's still something you've got to say there. The future's bright, really. It's quite exciting.